Welcome back. All right, I want to talk about one of the best stories of the first half of the NHL season, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. Absolutely remarkable run by the Jets to get to a record of 23-9-4. Now, it is comparable to last year's record at this time, but it feels different. Last year, they were 22-13-1. There were also a lot of talks about Pierre-Luc Dubois, whether or not he wanted to stick around. There were a lot of discussions about just how happy the team was in general, and it didn't feel the same as this year. This year's just been pretty good. Even when Kyle Connor got hurt, and that should have impacted their offense, really didn't. So 2021, 2022, they were 17-13-6. So yeah, this is the best season they have had in quite some time. And the comparisons to, say, the 2017-2018 season, I think are apt. But I think this team, it has a feel like a team that could go further in the playoffs. And we never know until those playoff games start how it's going to go. But this is going to be a tough team to shut down. They have three scoring lines. So when we look at their scoring, Scheifele leads the way with exactly a point per game, which is where he's been most of his career. 12 goals, 24 assists, 36 points in 36 games. Josh Morrissey's quietly having a very good run. 6 goals, 24 assists for 30 points in 36 games. At this point last year, Morrissey was being talked about for the Norris. Morrissey was a large driving force of what went on with Winnipeg last year in the first half. But again, he doesn't. It doesn't feel like he's as important to this run. He's still very, very important. I'm not saying he's not, but it doesn't feel like he is the absolute guy that gets this going. And if he has any trouble, that the rest of his teammates won't be able to pick things up. Connor's still third in scoring, 17 goals, 11 assists for 28 points in 26 games. But again, missing him for 10 games, they've been fine. Ehlers, 36 games, 12 goals, 15 assists, 27 points. He has stepped up in the absence of Kyle Connor. Perfetti, 10 goals, 14 assists, 24 points in 36 games. Perfetti is, I don't know if he's going to be a star in the National Hockey League, but he's a good kid. He's a good player, and the talent is definitely there. He is on pace for over 50 points this year, and I think we're just scratching the surface with Perfetti. Niederreiter might be having the best season of his career. In 36 games, he has 12 goals, 10 assists, 22 points. And it's interesting because the narrative's always out there. As soon as anybody wants to be traded out of Winnipeg or free agents going to market from Winnipeg, you'll hear players don't want to play in Winnipeg. Even though most of the guys on this list have either decided to stay in Winnipeg, signed extensions in Winnipeg, or have never complained about playing for the Jets. Nemesnikov has really resurrected his career. 33 games, 4 goals, 16 assists for 20 points. And again, really solid producer on that third line. Appleton, 36 games, 6 goals, 13 assists, 19 points. It was a very smart decision to get Appleton back from Seattle last season. A move that I was really happy about at the time that easily flew under the radar because once you get into trade season, it's easy to look at Appleton ending up back in Winnipeg and say, well, that's nothing major. But it does feel like he's meant to be a Jet. Iafallo has been very good defensively. 7 goals, 10 assists, 17 points in 36 games. Lowry, 7 goals, 10 assists for him as well. Same amount of games, 36 games. Lowry's a leader for this team and has shown it throughout the season. Gabriel Velarde, 18 games, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points. Velarde has been everything they could have asked for and more, really. Since returning from injury, he's been absolutely fantastic. And so, yeah, things are going pretty well with the offense for this team, and it's spread out. So if you shut down one player, you've got a bunch of other guys who can hurt you. This is a team that works really well when it comes to the transition plays. Very fast, very smart team, and well coached. I think Rick Bowness deserves a lot of credit for how well they've played this season and last season. Because remember, last season, by the end of it, Rick Bowness was pretty disgusted by the team, and it sounded like there could be major changes. They buy out Wheeler, they trade Dubois, they left the rest as it was, and it looks like that was brilliant. So Connor Hellebuck, 18 6-3 record, 920 save percentage. That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty darn good. It's standard for Connor Hellebuck. Winnipeg fans, I think, are maybe a little bit spoiled because they haven't had to worry about goaltending for a long time. Brossoit, 5-3-1 record, 912 save percentage. He's had the odd spotty start here and there, but that's how you end up being a backup rather than a starter. He is very capable as a backup goaltender, as he showed in Las Vegas last year. Now, looking at their record at home, they're 13-5-2. That's very good, but they're also very good on the road, 10-4-2. So it doesn't matter where they're playing right now, they're getting wins. They are 7-1-2 in their last 10 games. So their record has been very good. They have a 9-game point streak of 7-0-2, so that regulation win was that 10th game back. They very well could have qualified for a video anyways, although technically videos are 10 wins in a row, not a winning or a point streak of 10 games. But only one regulation loss in their last 14 games. Very consistent, very good. Doesn't matter where they're playing. And it doesn't matter who they're playing either. So their goal scoring, 3.36 goals per game, is actually 11th in the NHL. Their goals against, 2.47 goals against per game. That is second overall in the NHL. And remarkably, they have allowed 3 goals or less in 26 straight games. 26 games in a row. So for over 2 months, if you're a Jets fan, you haven't seen a team put up 4 goals against the Winnipeg Jets. That is a remarkable number. I don't know if there's a record that's kept on that, on the longest run of allowing 3 goals or less, but it is a crazy number. Now, their power play needs a little improvement, but I'll talk about that too, because the numbers aren't as bad as they look. So 16.8% on the power play, they're 24th. 73.8% on the penalty kill, they're 27th. So those numbers are not good. But I'll talk about why they're not hurting Winnipeg's record right now in a bit. So their scoring, it doesn't matter what period it is, they're a positive. 27 goals for in the first, 22 goals against. 45 goals in the second period, 33 goals against. 47 goals for in the third, 31 goals against. So this is a team that starts off the game playing pretty well, and as the game goes along, they get better. Now in overtime is a crapshoot, right? They've scored twice, they've allowed 3. So 3-on-3, they're a little bit below 500 there, but again, it's not really hurting their record. Now, if they're leading after 1, you can kind of turn the TV off if you'd like. It's kind of a bizarre way to watch hockey, but I'm not going to judge you. They're 11-1 if they're leading after the first. If they're leading after the second, they're 18-1-1. So again, remarkable record. We're about halfway through the season, and 18-1-1 with a lead after 2 periods, which means they've had a lead after 2 periods 20 times in those 36 games. So really playing quite well. Now, if they trail after the first, they're 5-3-1, so that's a very good number there too. Again, their scoring in the first is not quite as abundant as it is in the second and the third. If they're trailing after the second, they're 1-7-1. So that's not outside of what the usual is in the National Hockey League at this point, and that's nothing to really worry about. Now, I wanted to talk about the penalty minutes a little bit here. So they're only producing 8 minutes and 36 seconds of penalty minutes per game. That is 24th in the NHL. So in terms of penalty minutes, they're very low on the list. So the fact that they're 27th on the penalty kill is not hurting them because they don't end up shorthanded as often. And in terms of net penalties, so penalties taken versus penalties drawn, they have drawn 10 more penalties than they've taken, which is 6th overall in the NHL. So that's a strong number right there. And they have 12 major penalties. That's 7th overall in the NHL. So what's interesting is, in overall penalty minutes, they're low, but it feels like they really go for it with the 12 major penalties. So that would be your fighting, your 5 minutes for boarding, for cross-checks, for whatever, right? 5-minute penalties. They're 7th in the league there. So they don't take a lot of minor penalties, is what I'm saying here. Now, they did lose 3 out of 4 to start the season. They were 4-4-2 to start the season, and since then, it has been a fantastic run for them. So will it continue, right? Or will we see them slow down? So going into the All-Star break, I've got their schedule from now till then. Tomorrow, they are on the road in San Jose. As Detroit saw last night, and Detroit found out in both games, if you take San Jose lightly at all, or if you take your foot off the gas, they can hurt you. They shouldn't hurt the Winnipeg Jets, but again, there are upsets in the National Hockey League, almost on a nightly basis. Then on Friday, so back-to-backs, they're in Anaheim. So they go from San Jose to Anaheim, and then on Sunday, they're on the road again. They finish that road trip in Arizona. So this is a 3-game road trip that's winnable, but Arizona's tough. Anaheim can be, and San Jose can be. So again, those are 2 out of 3 they should win, absolutely. But if they swept the road trip, I wouldn't be entirely surprised with the way they've been playing. Then they come back home on Tuesday to play against Columbus. Winnable game, yes. Then on Thursday, the 11th, they're at home against the Chicago Blackhawks. Same thing that I just said about Columbus. So that's 4 out of 5 that are against teams that are well below the playoff line in their next 5 games coming up. So the only playoff team they have coming up in the next 5 is Arizona. Then they're at home on Saturday, the 13th of January, against the Philadelphia Flyers. Tuesday, they're at home against the New York Islanders. That's the 16th. And then they go back out on the road for 3. Starting with Ottawa on the 20th of January. Then on the 22nd, they're against Boston. And on the 24th, they're against Toronto. Then they come back home. And on the 27th, on the Saturday, to close things out before the All-Star break, they play at home against Toronto. So home and home against Toronto. Boston, I mean, those 3 games are going to be tough going into the break. The Islanders are not an easy out either. But the schedule's not overly difficult. Like you have back-to-back here. I think that's the only back-to-back on the board. Yeah, that's the only back-to-back is the tomorrow and Friday. And then outside of that, again, they have days off. They have rests here and there. The Winnipeg Jets, the schedule is not bad. So would I be surprised if in these 11 games they ended up winning, say, 7 of them? Just say 7. Let's say they go 7-4. Wouldn't surprise me, which would put them at 30, 13-4 at the All-Star break. So this is a team that has, to this point, proven a lot of doubters wrong. I think they can still do it. I have been very bullish on this team for years when others said, oh, they should just, cut bait. Just this core doesn't get it done. Get rid of a bunch of guys, start over. I have been very vocal about how I think this team has underachieved in the past. I think they are much better than the wild card team they were last season. And I think the reality is that Winnipeg is a contender and should be viewed as a contender going forward. But there will always be that amount of fans that, and I'm talking like hockey fans, that will just look and go, that's the Jets. That's the Jets. So no matter what they do until the playoffs, there will be kind of we'll see. But Winnipeg, I think this could be the year because Hellebuck, great run for him. And I just mean that like the year that they finally show some forward momentum in the playoffs and have a nice run. I'm not saying Stanley Cup, although honestly, this would be a fun story. I think of the teams in the National Hockey League that could win a Stanley Cup, and I've done videos on this before on ones that fans wouldn't be as upset about. Obviously, Wild fans don't want to see the Jets win the Stanley Cup right now. Obviously, and there's fans of other teams as well that would disagree. But in the grand scheme of things, this is one team that if they won the Cup, I think most hockey fans would be happy for them, for their fans, for the players, and it would be a good story. So we'll see if they're still part of that story once we get into May and June of this spring. And I was going to say next year, and then it's like, no, that's this year. It's 2024. Man. So there's the first foible since we had the calendar flip over. But yeah, so I'd be interested to know your thoughts on whether or not you see the Jets as for real. Do you think they're gonna fall off? I do think there's a good chance they end up winning the division. I think it'd be great if they did. I think just for the unpredictability of it, that'd be fantastic. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. It means a lot, and I really hope I didn't jinx my wife's team, or I'm going to hear about it. Anyways, I only say that because there's always the talk about whether or not my videos jinx teams. Go back. My videos don't jinx teams. Not this season anyways. Hasn't been the case. But thank you guys for your support. I will talk to you again soon.